to the Mintner Method. I'm your host, Andrew Mintner, and on today's episode, we are going to break down ACC matchup between California and Pittsburgh. Now, if you had any part of the Cal-Miami game last weekend that wasn't spread related, I tip my hat to you and my condolences to an absolutely brutal collapse in the fourth quarter. And there's just really no other way to say that. Cal had that game won in the bag without, up 25 in the third. You got to be able to close that game out, right? And it was kind of exactly, me and my friend had talked about the game on Saturday morning when we have our phone call to kind of go over games that I didn't cover. And it was just kind of exactly what we had thought. He's like, Cam Ward, when he faces pressure and in big games, there are just some egregious turnovers that he will throw. And that interception that he threw, it would make Brett Favre blush. It was terrible. But he rallied him back and they won. So what can you say, right? Well, this is the classic letdown spot for Cal. The adrenaline dump of having game day and losing. It feels like this is a spot where, they might not show up. But I'm here to maybe counter that, right? So when we look at the early downs statistics, as you can see, Cal on offense and Pitt on defense, they're pretty, they're pretty similar, very average, nothing exquisite to write home about, right? Cal, on the other side, they meet the threshold for the early down statistics that we've been leaning into, the trends of being top 15 in either offense or defense, and they're elite level. This is strength on strength. Pittsburgh is 19th in early down passing EPA. Cal is third in early down defensive pass EPA, right? So this is going to be another strength-on-strength matchup, which we're going to have to evaluate a little bit more to kind of see, if this is really strength-on-strength, right? So when we go to the advanced statistics side of the ball, there are a couple of things for Cal that I feel like is going to be to their advantage, right? From an explosive standpoint, they are going to have a lot of explosive plays in this game. Now, they're going to probably be average efficiency, but these are going to be explosive when it comes to, chunk plays and whatnot. Now, a couple things that are concerning. The offensive line for Cal is very horrendous, to put it kindly. Not a big threat to run the ball. They allow a lot of pressure. Their offensive line doesn't produce a lot of time for Mendoza, the quarterback, to operate, but they've seemed to do fine with that, which, it's going to break eventually, right? Now, Pittsburgh does have decent front seven havoc and overall havoc, but nothing super elite. They're not top 15 or top 10, pushing 25% or something like that, right? So the things, though, that are going to be concerning if you're a Pittsburgh fan is going to be in the passing game, because California 52nd in passing efficiency and 29th in passing explosiveness. This secondary is begging for mercy back there. 108th in passing efficiency defensively, and then 117th in explosiveness allowed passing. So when we come over to the Pittsburgh side of the ball, it's like their offense completely mirrors, is the polar opposite of their defense, right? They're very explosive on offense, and, they're very efficient also. So, a decent offense, mind you. Now, when it comes to California, they are good at limiting explosiveness, and they're good against the pass in general. Now, this will be a test to see if they can bounce back from just the absolute breakdown that they had last week against Miami. And so we're going to dive into the profiles of each passing attack, because I think it's crucial here when we're looking at the cat being Cal's secondary and their defense showing up again. So Pittsburgh is pretty balanced and average when it comes to what they want to do, right? So they're just on par average when it comes to behind the line to scrimmage, short throws, medium or Mickey Mouse throws. They're just average, right? Now, when we go to big dog attempts, that is where they like to ramp it up. They're 22nd in medium attempts, 53rd in deep percentage, and they're actually really good, 26th overall in passes that are going 10 or more yards down the field. So that is extremely good. Again, though, this is Cal's strength on defense. They are really good at defending, these down the field passes. They're 16th overall, especially against the deep route. They just dominate. They're 5th on deep passes. Now, their weakness, though, is in the short game. And that's kind of where Cam Ward and Xavier Restrepo took advantage of them last week, was in the short game. They dominated in that area. Now, this is very concerning if this is where Pittsburgh really wanted to throw the ball, but they have not shown, A, that they're really good at that, or B, that is where they want to go with it, right? So when we come back here and we want to look at Cal's profile, they're a down the field type thrower also. 23rd in EPA on passes of 10 or more yards through the air. Now, you're like, okay, well, what about, on the opposite side? How do they look, when it comes to behind the line of scrimmage stuff? Not their strength, okay? That's just not their strength. And they're not really doing it at a high clip. They're doing it at an average clip. So, they kind of have an understanding that that's not their thing, And so Pittsburgh on the defensive side of the ball, they're really bad on Mickey Mouse stuff. Short area would be the most concerning for me because Cal is actually really good at that, as I just showed you. And then when we get to more down the field type stuff, Pittsburgh kind of shores it up a little bit, right? Here and here, 60th overall. Not terrible. Not amazing, mind you, but not terrible. All right. And so, looking at whether or not the blitzing and whatnot is going to affect Cal, Fernando Mendoza is solid against the blitz and solid against non-blitz, And when we go to Pittsburgh's side of the ball, there is a larger discrepancy. They tend to, struggle more against the blitz, 94th overall. And then when we look at Cal, they're just an average team blitzing-wise. They blitz 25.3% of the time, is very close to the average overall. And then Pittsburgh elevated very high, but again, I don't think that is going to matter against a quarterback who is shown to be decent against the blitz. It could be more a hindrance in reality. So when we look at the schedule here, Cal has showed up in 2 big games. They had a week to prepare for. They had 2 weeks to prepare for Miami. They almost got it done. Obviously, almost doesn't matter. They did get it done in Auburn, a very competitive game there where they were not expected to. This game in Pittsburgh, I think, Pitt beating North Carolina last week, that was a good win for them on the road. It's more of a you're going to have to show it to me type thing. I didn't have Pittsburgh high on my list at the beginning of the year, obviously, as nobody did. And now they're 5-0, but when I'm looking at these victories, the North Carolina victory is the most impressive by far, right? But I'm not really impressed by any of the other victories. They could very well come out here and just put it to Cal, but it's more of a you're going to have to show me type thing. When I look at Cal being 4th overall in early downs defensive success versus the schedule that they have played, and granted, obviously Florida State's not great. Auburn is not a top tier SEC team, but is still an SEC team, mind you, nonetheless. In Miami, they are probably a playoff fraud if we're going to be real, but they are good. That competition is incomparable to Pittsburgh's competition, and I believe the line right now is right around. If I had to guess, I think it was 3.5. Let me see. 3.5. You got it right there. So for me, I am going to be leaning with Cal here. I'm going to be leaning into the trend that I've been tracking, and just in general the overall metrics that lean towards them. Now, Pittsburgh does have the chance to take advantage of some weaknesses of Cal, but until I see them really succeed in a spot where they're not really predicted to, then I'm gonna be going the other way. I think it's a lot to get up after 2 losses, especially 2 losses that you would really like to have coming into a new conference, but. There was a lot to be said about the Florida State game. A lot of people were like, okay, well, they should have beat Florida State. They get the bye. They come out and they play Miami. It's game day. They played their hearts out. They lost. Like, the season's over. I don't really view it like that. I think they're going to come out and they're going to give a really good effort, and I think they're going to cover the 3.5 and potentially win this game on the road. This is a gritty team physically. And mentally, in my opinion. And all the metrics kind of show that. And they show that, they have the potential to take advantage of Pittsburgh in certain areas, especially in the secondary, and that they have been more disciplined and sound defensively. So that's going to be it for this episode. As always, please like, subscribe, share the content with your friends or family. Anyone you might think might be interested. It's a very small channel, and I'm just starting out with it. I really enjoy it. I spend my spare time, researching these things, and they're it's my hobby, my passion, And as always, if you have suggestions for game breakdowns, please leave it in the comment. This is a subscriber breakdown. I did not have Pittsburgh or Cal on my list of games to break down, but a subscriber recommended it in one of their games that they would like to be seeing, and I like it. I think it's a good game. I was interested to see what the metrics looked like after Cal's breakdown last week against Miami, and I think this is always a good exercise to look at games that are outside the marquee. Because in reality, everybody wants to look at the big games and bet the big games and stuff like that. And you just, there's so much value in other games because not everybody's paying attention to them. So, but other than that, thank you as always for watching, for listening, and I'll catch you on the next one. Take care.